The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cracked parking lot of Lincoln High School in Flint, Michigan, as Terry Crews pulled up in his black SUV. He had driven 3 hours from Detroit to speak at his old school's career day, a tradition he'd maintained for the past 5 years. The familiar sight of the red brick building brought back a flood of memories from his teenage years, memories of struggle, determination, and the man who had changed his life forever. As Terry stepped out of his vehicle, adjusting his tailored suit jacket against the October chill, he noticed something that made him pause. Across the parking lot, an elderly man was slowly pushing a maintenance cart filled with cleaning supplies toward the main building. The figure was bent slightly with age, wearing a faded blue janitor's uniform that had seen better days. There was something achingly familiar about the man's methodical movements, the way he carefully maneuvered the cart around potholes in the asphalt. Terry squinted in the afternoon light, his heart beginning to race as recognition dawned on him. The silver hair, the deliberate stride, even after all these years, it couldn't be. "Coach Williams?" Terry called out, his voice carrying across the empty lot. The elderly man stopped pushing his cart and slowly turned around. His weathered face, marked by decades of sun and hard work, broke into a surprised smile that revealed the same warmth Terry remembered from his youth. Coach Robert Williams, now 82 years old, stood there in his janitor's uniform, looking at the successful man his former student had become. "Terry Crews," Coach Williams said, his voice still carrying that familiar tone of authority mixed with genuine affection. "Well, I'll be damned. Look at you, son." Terry felt his throat tighten with emotion as he approached his former coach. This was the man who had believed in him when no one else would, who had pushed him to be better both on and off the football field. But seeing Coach Williams in a janitor's uniform, still working at 82, sent a wave of concern through Terry's chest. "Coach, what are you doing here?" Terry asked, gesturing toward the maintenance cart. I thought, after all these years." Coach Williams chuckled, the same hearty laugh Terry remembered from countless practice sessions. "Someone's got to keep this place clean, son. Retirement doesn't pay the bills like it used to." His eyes held a mixture of pride and resignation that Terry found heartbreaking. The two men stood there in the fading sunlight, separated by decades of time, but connected by memories that had shaped them both. Terry's mind raced with questions about how his mentor, the man who had taught him about discipline, perseverance, and integrity, had ended up pushing a mop at 82 years old. "Coach, we need to talk," Terry said, his voice filled with determination and concern. "After my presentation, today, let's catch up properly." 2 hours later, Terry sat across from Coach Williams in a small diner just off the main street of Flint. The Formica table between them was scratched and worn, much like the city itself, which had seen better days. Steam rose from 2 cups of black coffee as the evening crowd began to filter out, leaving them with relative privacy to have the conversation that had been weighing on Terry's mind since their encounter. Coach Williams had changed out of his janitor's uniform into a simple sweater and slacks, but Terry could see the exhaustion in his mentor's eyes, the kind that comes from years of physical labor well past the age when most people retire to their recliners. "So tell me the truth, Coach," Terry said, leaning forward with concern etched across his face. "What happened? Last I heard, you were retiring with a full pension after 35 years of teaching and coaching." Coach Williams stirred his coffee, slowly, his weathered hands trembling slightly, whether from age or emotion, Terry couldn't tell. "Well, son, life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them." He paused, looking out the diner's window at the streetlights beginning to flicker on. "My pension got cut in half during the city's bankruptcy. You remember how bad things got here in Flint?" Terry nodded grimly. The water crisis, the economic collapse, the exodus of families. He'd watched his hometown struggle from afar while his own career soared. "Then, my Martha got sick," Coach Williams continued, his voice growing quieter. "Cancer. 3 years of treatments, experimental drugs, specialists in Detroit and Chicago. Insurance covered some of it, but he shrugged, a gesture that seemed to carry the weight of impossible choices. What are you going to do? Let the woman you've loved for 52 years suffer because of money? The words hit Terry like a physical blow. He remembered Mrs. Williams from his high school days, always the first to arrive at games, cheering louder than anyone else, treating every player like her own son. She had made cookies for the team bus rides and had been the unofficial team mother. "Coach, I'm so sorry. Is she..." "She passed 2 years ago," Coach Williams said, his voice steady, but his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Peaceful, in our own home, surrounded by love. No regrets there, Terry, but the medical bills. They took everything. The house, the savings, even had to sell her wedding ring." He took a sip of his coffee, using the moment to compose himself. Terry felt anger rising in his chest, not at Coach Williams, but at a system that could allow a man who had dedicated his entire life to serving others to end up in such circumstances. "So you took the janitor job to survive. Started 3 years ago. Figured I knew the school better than anyone. Spent 40 years walking those halls. The principal, she's a former student of mine, gave me the job out of kindness." Coach Williams managed a weak smile. "It's honest work, Terry. Nothing wrong with honest work. But Coach, you're 82 years old. You should be enjoying your golden years, not mopping floors and emptying trash cans." Coach Williams reached across the table and placed his hand on Terry's arm, the same reassuring gesture he'd used countless times during Terry's turbulent teenage years. "Son, I've been blessed with good health and the ability to work. There are men my age who can't even get out of bed. I'm grateful for what I have." The next morning, Terry couldn't shake the image of Coach Williams pushing that maintenance cart. He sat in his hotel room overlooking downtown Flint, phone in hand, making calls that would set remarkable events in motion. His first call was to his business manager, then to his publicist, and finally to several contacts in the entertainment industry. "I need you to set up a GoFundMe page," Terry told his assistant over the phone, pacing back and forth across the hotel carpet. "No, this isn't for publicity. This is personal." He explained the situation with Coach Williams, his voice growing more passionate with each detail. But as Terry continued planning, he realized that a simple fundraiser wouldn't address the deeper issue. Coach Williams was a proud man who had spent his entire life giving to others. He wouldn't accept what he perceived as charity, no matter how desperately he needed help. Terry's second call was to the principal of Lincoln High School, Dr. Jennifer Martinez, who had indeed been one of Coach Williams' former students. When she answered, her voice immediately brightened upon hearing Terry's name. "Terry, Coach Williams couldn't stop talking about seeing you yesterday. He was so proud showing everyone the photo you two took together." "Dr. Martinez, I need to talk to you about Coach Williams' situation," Terry said, his tone becoming serious. "What can you tell me about his circumstances?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Terry, I wish I could do more for him. He's the hardest worker we have. Never complains, always early, stays late. But our district budget, we can barely keep the lights on. I gave him the janitor position because I knew he needed income, but I can't afford to pay him what he deserves. What if I told you I had an idea that could help Coach Williams while also benefiting the school?" By noon, Terry was back at Lincoln High School, but this time he wasn't alone. His personal assistant had driven up from Detroit with a small camera. Crew, not for a big production, just to document what was about to happen. Terry had also made arrangements for several local news stations to be present. He found Coach Williams in the gymnasium, methodically mopping the wooden floors that had once thundered with the footsteps of championship teams he had coached. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the high windows created an almost reverent atmosphere around the elderly man at work. "Coach," Terry called out, his voice echoing in the empty gym. "I have a proposition for you." Coach Williams stopped, mopping, and turned, a curious expression on his weathered face. "What kind of proposition, son?" "The kind where everybody wins," Terry replied, a smile spreading across his face. "But first, I need you to trust me. And I need you to remember something you taught me 25 years ago about accepting help when it's offered with love." 1 week later, Lincoln High School's auditorium was packed beyond capacity. Students, teachers, parents, and community members filled every seat, with many more standing along the walls. Local news crews had set up cameras, and the energy in cell. The room was electric with anticipation. Coach Williams sat in the front row, confused and slightly overwhelmed by the attention. He had been told there was going to be a special assembly about the school's athletic programs, but he couldn't understand why Terry Crews was on stage or why everyone kept looking at him. "Ladies and gentlemen," Terry announced from the podium, his powerful voice carrying easily through the packed auditorium, "today we're here to honor a man who has dedicated over 40 years of his life to this school and this community. A man who shaped the lives of thousands of students, who taught us that character matters more than championships, and who continues to serve this school with dignity and grace at the age of 82. The audience began to applaud, and Coach Williams felt his cheeks redden as he realized the assembly was about him. Terry continued, his voice growing more emotional. "Coach Robert Williams taught me that success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about how you treat people along the way. He taught me about perseverance, integrity, and the power of believing in someone even when they don't believe in themselves." From behind the curtain, Terry gestured, and Dr. Martinez joined him on stage, carrying a large framed certificate. "Which is why," Terry announced, "I'm establishing the Robert Williams Athletic Excellence Endowment at Lincoln High School. This endowment will ensure that student athletes have the resources they need to succeed, and it comes with one very important stipulation." Coach Williams looked confused as Terry smiled directly at him. "The endowment requires a full-time athletic director and mentor, someone with extensive experience, unshakable integrity, and a heart for developing young people. The salary is $75,000 per year, with full benefits and a retirement contribution that will ensure dignity in your later years." The auditorium erupted in applause as understanding dawned on Coach Williams's face. Terry had found a way to help him while allowing him to maintain his pride and continue doing what he loved most, mentoring young people. "Coach Williams, Dr. Martinez said into the microphone, would you accept the position of athletic director and student mentor at Lincoln High School?" Coach Williams stood slowly, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks as the entire auditorium rose to their feet. In a thunderous standing ovation, he walked to the stage with the same determined stride Terry remembered from countless football practices, though now it carried the weight of overwhelming gratitude. Taking the microphone with shaking hands, Coach Williams looked out at the crowd of faces, many of them former students whose lives he had touched over the decades. "In all my years," he said, his voice breaking with emotion, "I never imagined I'd be standing here like this. Terry, son, you've given an old man more than a job. You've given me purpose for whatever years I have left." He turned to face the audience, his voice growing stronger. "But this isn't really about me. This is about what happens when we remember that we're all part of something bigger than ourselves. When we lift each other up, when we remember where we came from, and when we pay forward the kindness that was shown to us." 6 months later, Coach Williams had transformed the school's athletic program. Wearing a sharp suit instead of a janitor's uniform, he walked the halls with renewed energy, mentoring students who reminded him daily why he had chosen education as his life's work. The endowment had grown through additional community donations, allowing the school to upgrade facilities and provide scholarships for students who might otherwise never have the chance to attend college. Terry visited regularly, sometimes finding Coach Williams in his new office surrounded by photos from decades of championship teams and grateful letters from former students. The maintenance cart was gone, replaced by the tools of mentorship, encouraging words, unwavering support, and the kind of wisdom that only comes from a lifetime of service to others. If this story of respect, gratitude, and second chances moved you, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring real-life stories that that show the power of never forgetting where you came from. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that it's never too late to make a difference in someone's life. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that celebrate the teachers, coaches, and mentors who shape our lives. Thank you for watching, and remember, the greatest victories happen when we lift each other up.